It's Bill Clinton. This is a story about Democrats and Bill Clinton, and it's always been that way.
There are pictures of Donald Trump with Epstein as well. So, I mean,
not a shred of evidence about Donald Trump at any time doing anything untoward.
In this clip from Abby Phillips' CNN show, guest host Sara Sidner joins Scott Jennings and the rest of the panel to discuss the latest Epstein file releases. As the conversation unfolds, Jennings predictably works to downplay the revelations and frame them as business as usual. I'll be breaking down what's being said along the way and sharing my own take on how this narrative is being shaped. Stick around, and once you've watched, I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Let's get into it.
The Epstein files, some of them, but not all of them. The Justice Department has 2 more hours to release the entire trove, but that's not going to happen, which goes against the law Congress passed and President Trump signed 30 days ago. So far, they have released tens of thousands of documents and pictures, much of it redacted and at times inconsistently so. We're still sifting through what has been released so far. One document, though, confirms that Epstein was first reported to the FBI back in the 1990s. There are some new pictures of Bill Clinton and Epstein, including one of the former president in a pool with Ghislaine Maxwell. It's worth noting, all of the pictures lack context in terms of date and time and who's there. Clinton's camp says the pictures are being weaponized, and he never engaged nor is accused of any wrongdoing. But tonight, there is anger from all sides. Republican Congressman Thomas Massey, who spearheaded the law to force this release, says Pam Bondi's DOJ grossly failed to comply. And now, there are questions about what was redacted, why it was redacted, and which documents are being held back. All right, I am going to start with you, and I'm going to call you Madam Schneider. You are a lawyer at this table. When you see that they are not going to meet this deadline, you say?
Ridiculous. The law was passed. They were given 30 days. They knew today was the day to release the documents. And all of a sudden today they tell us they're not ready. They can only release a couple of 100,000 pages. There's more. They haven't told us how many more pages there are. And there's software to go through these documents. There are keyword searches they can do with software, with AI technology. This is how lawyers operate when they have voluminous document production. They could have gone through that quickly. And then the lawyers come and look over everything and make sure they're not violating any privileges or laws or privacy or executive privilege or all the other loopholes that they were given in the statute, in the law. But to tell the American public the day they're due, oh, we're not ready, we're only giving you a little bit, and then the amount they give us, blank pages again. Same thing that happened last time. It happened in February when Pam Bondi said, I'm going to release the Epstein binders. And they had a big ceremony on the White House lawn, and there was nothing new in the binders. There are some new things now coming out, and they are slowly coming out. I'll just make one comment before the panel jumps in, but Bill Clinton releasing those photos, and there's nothing wrong with showing, he's not doing anything wrong in the photos, but maybe it's embarrassing to him. Why are you releasing the Bill Clinton photos and not redacting those when President Trump ordered or directed Pam Bondi to open an investigation on Bill Clinton last month? It's a disingenuous type of investigation, in my opinion. He ordered the investigation of Clinton and prominent Democrats within the Epstein file and nobody else, and all of a sudden they're releasing pictures of Bill Clinton when he is the subject of a government investigation. And that's exactly the opposite of the DOJ policy, which is when you have an active investigation, you close off all information. So it seems duplicitous to me.
Scott, don't you think that because they are not releasing everything that Congress and the president signed to say you have to release this in 30 days, doesn't it give more fodder for the conspiracies that exist? I mean, they're not following the law.
Well, look, they've released how many documents tonight? 200,000? More? 400?
10% of that's
okay. So a good faith effort is being made to release files tonight.
Really?
They're obviously doing that. And I think as it relates to redactions, I mean, my impression is that there's a whole lot of names of victims in there and minors and other people that you probably wouldn't want to release, and they do need to be redacted. Regarding Bill Clinton, I'm sorry to tell you, the reason that Bill Clinton's picture is in the Epstein files is because this has always been a story about Bill Clinton and not Donald Trump. We should call it the Clinton files, not the Epstein files. That's what we're learning tonight. This is the Clinton files. This is the blowing up in the face of the Democrats over this. It's Bill Clinton. This is a story about Democrats and Bill Clinton, and it's always been that way.
Pictures of Donald Trump with Epstein as well. So, I mean,
not a shred of evidence about Donald Trump at any time doing anything untoward.
Nor a shred of evidence about Bill Clinton doing anything
Democrats have tried to sell a narrative this year that this is a story about Trump and Epstein, and it's going to blow up in their face.
I just want to get away from the talking points and actually talk about the facts right now.
It's not a talking point. Your president, Bill Clinton, is in a pool with some people that have their faces blurred out.
And you know what? And I think that if there are photos of any politician or anybody who is potentially friends with Jeffrey Epstein and was around these minors, I think they should release the photos of all of them, whether they are Democrats or Republicans. The reality is that the entire reason we're in this place is it does seem fishy to me that Pam Bondi wanted to release all the files and all of a sudden she didn't. And then all of a sudden she has files to release, only 10% of them, 5% which are new, and they happen to only have photos of Bill Clinton. Explain to me why you think that Pam Bondi
Did you feel that way?
was holding on so tight to the Bill Clinton photos.
Did you feel this way about the oversight Democrat document dump the other day when they put out a picture of Donald Trump at some unrelated issue and redacted faces of adult people who had nothing to do with Epstein at all? Did you feel that? Were you having righteous indignation?
Let me tell you, I actually believe that the only thing that they should be redacting are the faces of victims.
So you're mad at the Democrats on the Oversight Committee?
I think they should.
Political.
I don't think that they should.
And the victims are mad at the Oversight Democrats.
I don't
But
think that
the Oversight Committee did not do what you say they did.
Yes,
they released photos of people on both sides, men who were not redacted.
Did they redact
Republicans
pictures of
and
women
Democrats.
who were adults who were not Epstein victims who had? These are public. They redacted the pictures to create a narrative, but not the truth, and that's the story of this.
Every once in a while, Scott Jennings works so hard to spin reality that he ends up landing 180 degrees away from the truth. Presenting heavily redacted photo releases as transparency isn't about openness at all. It's about shaping a narrative and hiding what actually matters. And while political spin has always existed, nothing in my lifetime comes close to the scale of what we're seeing now. That's why comparisons to Barack Obama don't even make sense, and why Watergate under Richard Nixon, the scandal that forced a president to resign, now looks almost quaint by comparison. We're told to trust institutions, yet the Department of Justice and the FBI are led by loyalists placed there on purpose, including Kash Patel, the same person who literally wrote a children's book portraying Donald Trump as a heroic king, which is real and actually happened. At a certain point, the situation becomes so detached from reality that it feels almost absurd, and anyone listening can tell Scott Jennings isn't unintelligent. He's playing the role of a propagandist while pretending to be confused. You see it when a president treats the White House like personal property, tearing parts of it down to build a massive gold-plated ballroom, and criticism of that is brushed off by comparing it to Obama building a basketball court, as if those things are remotely comparable. Remove Trump from the equation and replace him with Democratic presidents, and no one like Scott Jennings would ever defend this behavior, leaving deliberate and intentional dishonesty as the only explanation.
That's your narrative. They gave a very equal disclosure in the photographs. It wasn't just Donald Trump.
The Clinton files are out, and you're upset about it. I understand.
No, but the funny part is you saying they made a good faith effort today, a Friday, their deadline. They made a good faith effort.
Of course.
They had to come up with all kinds of statements. Todd Blanche went on Fox News to say, we're not ready, we need more time, there's so much work
government's
to do.
never missed a deadline.
They knew the deadline 30 days ago. They have the capabilities to meet deadlines. These files have been around since before
the Clinton
2019.
thing is killing you.
Yes,
First of all, with response to the Oversight Committee releasing pictures of who they redacted, who they didn't, I wish they redacted the face of Jimmy Buffett. Let's not drag him into this. But the second thing is, when you're saying that there's 300,000 documents that were released today, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Now you're talking about millions of pages. I'm sorry, I want my Justice Department to measure 5 times and cut once before putting a name out to the public. That could be run through the mud. So I'm sorry, I know it's 30 days, but here's the problem.
Signed a law that said you have to put them all out. And how long has the DOJ?
Should he have vetoed it?
Hold on, how long has the DOJ had these documents?
Very
and I'm asking that because the victims are really upset.
That's
They
where
are
we're losing
the ones that are
conversation.
searching
Yes,
for their
Sarah.
own names, and they can't find them in these documents. So that is why we're here.
I do not disagree with you on any of the stuff with the victims. You have over 1,200 victims. There's probably thousands and thousands of more names of people associated. This is a huge web, and you're right. The DOJ has had a lot. Biden didn't release anything. This is the first time we're seeing the light of day. But here's the whole point here. There is still a PR battle being fought. And what I wish the DOJ would do, if I had one piece of advice, is you need to be incredibly clear when you do redact entire files, hundreds of pages. Please explain. It doesn't have to be much. Just explain why it was there.
Right.
Because it's still under
They
investigation.
can give a
There's
list of
name.
redactions.
Well,
You're
but it's
absolutely
not
right.
only that.
They
We
can.
had to, when I was at the Justice Department, we dealt with this, not the Epstein files, but we dealt with something similar
Oh, we know.
in various investigations, which was essentially is you provide Congress in-camera review. You provide Congress with all of the documents, unredacted, even with victims, in a SCIF. And both sides, Republicans and Democrats, should be allowed to review all of it and explain exactly why there were redactions for each part. And if they're not, then I actually think that Pam Bondi should be impeached. And I think that Todd Blanche should be impeached or potentially held in contempt if they're not going to go ahead and obey a law.
So, I have a question for you. So, you said earlier, or maybe you said this earlier, we are under the impression that some of the statements were the reason why there was redaction, full-page redactions, were based on the simple fact that there's an ongoing investigation. You don't want to release the name of some of the victims. And as you call it, the Clinton files. Why was it okay to release the pictures of Bill Clinton, even though he's under investigation? I'm curious as to why that would happen if it is the Clinton files and they are trying to err on the side of caution and they want to make sure due process is done.
Well, that's a
Can I
big
answer
question.
that as an attorney? I think it was deliberate. I think they had a choice.
Interesting.
The standard policy for DOJ is when there's an ongoing investigation, you seal off information, especially about the subject of the investigation, whom is Bill Clinton, and Donald Trump made Bill Clinton the subject of the investigation. So why is it okay now to violate all the policies that they have when it comes to the Epstein file and release these photos, which don't show anything? I mean, they don't show a crime.
Look,
they're not indicia of criminal activity.
Listen, look, I want to
You
say
know?
something. I see those files. I'm like, Bill was having a good time. He was having the time of his life. I don't know what was going on, but he was enjoying himself. And while it doesn't incriminate him, I'm not going to sit here and say on either side that I didn't look at that and think, well, Hillary can't be happy with that tonight. But I will say this to you, and I really am curious about how this works. We're not talking about the victims. I want to talk about Maria Farmer. 1996, September 1996. She made this complaint. Her sister was doing the campaign trail. She released it in terms of interviewing and talking to everyone about it. She releases a statement. 1996, this man was abusing the law and the FBI did nothing. That should be what is most upsetting. And while the victims may not want their names, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. I'm talking about that. I'm not on any side. I feel like it's disgusting that she has to wait till 2025. Yes.
Well,
and decades after she lets it, and we are still protecting this man like we're still pointing fingers.
And he's not even
disgusting.
alive.
And he's not even alive.
But
stop protecting him. It's disgusting.
But I think that, to that point, even if there is evidence that comes before the FBI that they don't use or they don't take seriously or they do not for some reason believe that it fits in a certain case, the prosecutors and the agents have a responsibility when they were going to trial to convict Jeffrey Epstein, when they were going to trial to convict Ghislaine Maxwell, to look at all of this evidence. And that is, I will say, FBI has some explaining to do. And I think the Justice Department should really talk about why exactly did this complaint get lost at the FBI.
And that's why I'm so glad that this story was corroborated with today's release. That is why I believe, as you were mentioning, conspiracy theories, the more these release, and that's why I want them out immediately. I want full transparency. I want people held accountable. I think everybody does, Democrat, Republican.
Do you?
But I want it done. Yeah, of course I do. But I want it done.
No, I mean, do you think everybody does? That's what I'm questioning. I don't question your integrity. I'm questioning if you think that both sides want everything out. That's just that's not true.
I do. Unless
they all voted for it.
They all voted for it.
But
I would more say, if we poll Americans, do you want Jeffrey Epstein, bad people held accountable?
Do you think that this administration is intentionally withholding information?
I do not. Until given evidence to believe otherwise.
You believe that
Until given evidence to believe otherwise.
You know what? I'm going to give you a little piece of evidence, what I think is evidence. In July, the DOJ and the FBI had a joint statement that said, we've thoroughly reviewed the Epstein file and we do not find evidence that we should pursue any further investigations against any third parties. So that was their own statement. We thoroughly reviewed this file, and they did a press release on that. So all of a sudden now, at the end of the year, they haven't thoroughly reviewed the file, and they don't know what's in it, and now they have to sit and redact it.
Well,
that does not make sense.
Let me give you the last word, Judy.
Thoroughly going through the documents to redact for public release and going through to find other cases to pursue. Look, I'm not a lawyer, but I would suspect those are two different things. So yeah, I think that's totally holds up.
Come on, W.
I'm telling you, the DOJ has a real PR battle on their hands. I don't think they've
do.
communicated clearly.
But
I have said
You know who else has a PR
last
battle?
year?
Clinton. It's just
Very
telling you
true.
right
You love
there.
talking about
The
Bill Clinton
Clinton
today.
file.
No one even
love
cares
that.
about
There- there are
nobody
a lot
even
of-
cares
Hold
about
on,
Bill
we're gonna hold on a
Clinton.
second.
He
There are a
sat
lot
in
of
the
people.
pool.
They're going to have people wondering what happened in these pictures, and it is not just Bill Clinton. We've seen a lot of pictures of a lot of different people that are in those. We will put a pin in this.
Scott Jennings must be relieved to finally have a new talking point, because the tired "what about Biden" routine clearly wasn't cutting it anymore, and now he's clinging to the Clinton files as if repeating them somehow alters reality. The irony is that people on this panel, on this show, and across the left have been consistent from the start. If Bill Clinton committed crimes with Epstein, investigate him, prosecute him, and lock him up, because no one should get a pass. The difference is that the right keeps circling the wagons to protect their own, pretending involvement is impossible, even though the first Epstein reporting dates back to 1996 when Clinton was president. We still don't have the full evidence because much of it remains hidden, but Clinton's name appearing in flight logs and photos surprises no one given his documented history, including the Monica Lewinsky scandal, which, while not illegal, was gross, inappropriate, and revealing, capped off by impeachment for lying under oath. If more evidence exists, then Pam Bondi, corrupt or not, should prosecute it and put everything on the table, because pretending there's not a shred of evidence, as Jennings does, is absurd when letters, photos, and records already exist. This constant feigned confusion is just another form of gaslighting, the same tactic used to deny affordability crises and observable reality, and it's why this entire moment feels surreal, like living in a broken simulation where authoritarian behavior gets normalized and chaos becomes routine. One online comment summed it up perfectly. Being a sane American right now feels like sitting in the back seat while a drunk father drives, a fearful mother enables him, siblings cheer the wreck, and you're the only one aware of the danger. When it comes back to the Clinton files and other names like Woody Allen, basic common sense tells you something is deeply wrong, yet history suggests the full truth may never come out because this is a vast web of corruption involving powerful people, countless victims, and decades of silence. Still, the bravery of survivors demand accountability, even if justice is rare. And to state the obvious, Donald Trump was also involved, given his documented friendship with Epstein and the photographic evidence everyone has seen. The facts are there, and the only real question left is whether we finally choose to face them.